is like a riding bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Albert Einstein. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your host, Shamiza Ali. We do apologize for the late start due to technical difficulties. Our topic tonight will be a report on the housing sector and how the 2024 Housing Expo will expand housing construction and other economic activities. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, the Caribbean, and Guyana. Funding support is by well known philanthropist Dave Narayan from Dave West Indian Imports. Please welcome my moderator, Dr. Tara, who is a distinguished political and social scientist.
Thank
Our
you very much,
panelists
Shamiza,
are
and welcome to our viewers.
Thank you, Dr. Tara. Welcome. Our panelists are Dr. Muniram Budu, who is a professor or emeritus civil and architectural engineering and engineering mechanics. Dr. Ganga Ramdas is a professor at Lincoln University. They have all worked in Guyana. Our guest tonight is the Honorable Collin David Croal. He is the Minister of Housing and Water. We will request our guests to answer questions from our viewers, so please write your questions in the chat. I will now pass you on to our moderator, Dr. Tara Singh. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Shamiza, and I also apologize to our viewers for the late start due to technical difficulties. I want to welcome the Honorable Minister of Housing and Water, Honorable Collin Croal. I know he's very busy. They have a hectic schedule. Um, but before, there are many things we want to ask you, Minister. So, because we are inviting some people from the audience to ask some questions too, so we'll ask if you can just make your response as short as possible, but satisfactory. I don't want to tell you how much time, but we want to get in as many questions as possible, both from our viewers and from the couple from our panelists. Um, Before we start, there was an article in newspaper saying that bids are out for the access road to the new Demerara Harbor Bridge. And if you can please give us a little rundown on that, the cost and the estimated time when it's finished, and the bridge as well. If you
All
can
right,
begin with that.
sure. Good evening. Good evening to you. It's a pleasure to join your program once again. Good evening to your listeners, and I trust we will leave our program much more informed. You're asking me to speak very brief, but it's housing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but you asked the first question you asked about it's an ongoing tender that you've seen out. Yes, that is to connect one of the connection from when the Damar Harbor Bridge where it lands in the vicinity of Dandy Park. That there's a 4 lane that will be constructed to connect to the Heroes Highway. Of course, there are other branch off before, but that's the one that you see out currently being tendered. The Damar Harbor Bridge is progressing well, as you see, and even a few days ago, you saw His Excellency the President would have posted a brief video on the progress. So that is on this side. This is on the East Bank side, and of course on the other side of the West Bank, we have the 4 lane that is nearing completion. So very shortly, His Excellency will be commissioning that road. That's from this Schoonard to Preen, or from the junction of when you cross over the bridge, and then where the Demerara Harbor Bridge will land for the high, because it's high span bridge, or you will have interconnecting to the various roads. So there's a lot to look forward for infrastructure and for access. Already we have improved the road network for East Bank. The Heroes Highway has brought tremendous benefit to all road users, not just persons from East Bank, but saves tremendous time as well as quick ingress and egress from to and from wherever persons are going about their business or where they're home.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Minister. I'm going to ask a very short question. So far, how many house lots have you allocated? How many houses have you built in the various categories?
So in terms of our allocation, that is going well. So we are about just under 34,000 when we take into consideration our house lots allocation, and so that's just under 34,000. We do have some more that we'll be doing very shortly at the Building Expo, which we'll talk about extensively.
Mhm.
So there are at least another 2,000 that we will be allocating at the Building Expo, and the allocation exercises will ramp up coming down to the end of the year. So, for example, for this year, we're about close to 4,500 allocations for this year. That's in the calendar year of 2024. So that will tell you we have at least another 6,000 at least we want to do on this year to ensure that we are able to meet our target of 50,000.
Mhm.
In terms of our houses, or you asked about houses,
Yes.
yeah, in terms of the houses, we have in total it's about 3,435. We have handed over of that amount over 17, about maybe 1,750 of those houses. The others are various stages of completion, and so that's a lot when you think about it in terms of both regions 3, 4, and 6. And we've just started some in Bartica for region 7. You have also have region 9, and we are doing land preparation to commence in region 10. So it has brought a lot of relief to for persons who want to own a home um, as quickly as possible, but they don't have the time to build their own design, their own dream house, etc. We have been having some challenges in terms of construction, and that's a fact. So you would have seen some of that in the news. And one of that is because one of the reasons because we also are keeping our houses at minimal cost, and so it's not for profit making. It's just break even. The houses are built at, and so we have been encouraging persons to also make use of the private sector in terms of having their own contractors to build their own houses. You recall our commitment release for allocation of house lots, but this is something His Excellency the President has been pushing for us to be able to build as much houses as possible.
Mhm.
All categories, whether young professional or low income.
Mhm. Okay. Quickly, how are these housing allocated at
A
random?
person, oh sure. Well, first of all, it starts with the person's preference. They indicate their preference in terms of whether they prefer a house or a land. They also have to be eligible as someone who can receive a land. So the initial application process is the same as if you were applying for a land. But those that we are going onwards for allocation, those persons are sent to the bank. They are sent to the bank for what is called a pre-qualification. So they will have an engagement with the bank. They'll have to indicate their ability to pay for that category of house. They will, or if they have to have a co-applicant. And when the bank pre-approves, then that comes back to the Ministry of Central Housing and Planning Authority. A point to note, though, however, is that when a bank approves is not a completion of the process because the availability of the house is dependent on our information. So that's when we allocate. So you do have sometimes there are more persons who are sent
Mhm.
for a particular area pre-qualified, but there is only so much we can send through. But I've been encouraging persons to also embark on their own construction, their own design, whatever dream house that they want to build in their
Okay.
affordability. And one of the things from the Building Expo you'll find too is is that it will allow potential homeowners to have an opportunity to meet, to discuss, to have new information on newer technologies for construction, meet persons in the sector, and so it goes both ways.
Mhm. All right. Finally, how many squatter communities are there, and how many the ministry has regularized so far?
For squatters, it's an ongoing process. Um, we are in various regions. So we have some areas that we have recorded. The areas are recorded in terms for the squatting, but there have been some small pockets that we've noticed popped up that we've had to address. I mean, some of that has been in the news. For example, you have for Hillfoot on the Suzaik Highway. We had a recent incident, Joanna at East Bank of Demerara. We have an ongoing exercise for removal of persons on the river dam on the Demerara River. And then we also have Zealot. On Monday, only Monday, we would have engaged as a follow up from His Excellency visit to Region 3 to move because they can't stay there. They have to be relocated. But many of these communities have been existing. But what happens sometimes, they there's growth. So you may recognize there were 12 persons there, and then quietly somebody else put up another two buildings. So we've been monitoring our areas for where we have squatting so that we can minimize. But this is something government has been aggressively addressing. I also want to some of the comments sometimes when we address this is you will have a person who is awaiting a house lot and they make that comment to say that the squatters are given priority. But it's not that. It's everyone is being addressed. And so you recognize I just provided close to 34,000 allocations. So we have in this period we have regularized maybe about 1,100 squatters or persons within unregulated areas. And then we have some areas that we can move ahead and regularize. So, for example, on Sunday, we have another activity in Region 3, but where that along the railway line, that land is no longer designed for other further use in terms of expansion. So we are regularizing the persons in that area. They have been living there uh, for many years. So it goes both ways, but it's something we're trying to quell. And absolutely, we've been saying that no new squatting will be recognized. And, but there's also a humanitarian side to it too.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Ganga, your question
Uh,
to the minister.
Welcome, Minister Coral. Happy
Hello,
to see you again.
it's a
Um,
pleasure.
I've been trying to rationalize from the old model to the new model we're evolving into. The old model, you had lodges, then you have factory, and then you have fields, and then the workers were commuting back and forth to those locations. So in the new um, evolution that we're having with the high growths and so forth, how do we see the urban development versus the rural? In the case of the urban, you would have we used to have schemes. So I guess we will still have schemes. We have housing parks like Republic Park, housing estates, and then you have the gated communities and the jobs. So I'm trying to figure out how these house lots are located and how the jobs and the travel, of course, bridges and roads and boats to get to the back and forth to the jobs. So can you explain the locational aspects in terms of urban versus rural development taking place?
First of all, we have to recognize a reality, and reallocation of house lots is not anything new. This is in fact this is premier by the PPPC government. And so any PPPC government will see a heavy emphasis on addressing housing needs in general. So as time goes by, therefore, the availability of land becomes a big subject, and that's right now. Why? Two reasons. We have already saturated the front land, so we have to keep going inwards and outwards. And secondly, we also have, as government is on its massive expansion, we also have the requirements of other sectors requesting lands. So let's use Gaisuko. We have had movement to some lands because we got that from Gaisuko. But then Gaisuko is also looking to expand. They're consolidating and expanding. And so that has to be the premier thinking of when we're talking about locating or the scheme, etc. And that is why the road networks, the opening and the expansion of road networks is equally important because it eliminates that issue of getting to and from work. We have, I mean, from where you live, you persons have to travel many hours to get to work. We don't have that dilemma. What you have, so in some cases, maybe persons, if you're coming from Region 3 and we know the congestion, so you may be stuck in the line, but it's not the distance you're traveling, it's actually the waiting time in the line. So, but we don't have that far distance a person have to go. And that is why, too, you have the expansion of the village economy. So every region government has an economic program to expand on opportunities so persons can get more employment there. Yes, of course, majority of the jobs will be in Region 4 or maybe Georgetown per se. But if you look per sector, even in some sector, for construction sector, for example, well, then there's a shortage actually. So you don't even have to travel out from where you too far from where you live because in every region we have new housing development. Every region. So that means that there's an opportunity near to where you live for that employment. Of course, the professionals, yes, they will have to travel out. And if you're in the oil and gas, then there's a concentration where you're at. But our program obviously caters for every strata of life. So yes, you have government housing program, and you have to cater for the ordinary. We have also as a government, because you had mentioned the gated community, we have a year ago or early last year would have had an expression of interest for persons for private land development, and we have an area along the Ogler stretch. That area has been made available. That was already allocated. So individual companies, etc., have had an allocation, and that is primarily for the development of high-end kind of beneficiaries. So whether it's townhouses, whether it's for condo type of buildings. So that's a different segment of the sector or market. And while we as a government, in terms of what we do, concentrate on the lower end of, whether it's low income, moderate, middle, high income too. And not everyone can afford that kind of level that I just spoke about. So yes, we do. We're not creating. We absolutely are not ensure. We are ensuring that the disparity is addressed, and that's where government priority is.
Thank you, Minister. That
But
was
but
very,
one more thing
very.
quickly. But
um,
however, the reality is though that in zoning, because as expansion happens, and because you keep moving out, the aspect of zoning is very important too, because areas or cluster of your communities that you may have identified as residential, you can see over time an inroad to other type of business like activities. So that is something we're also looking at.
Yeah, thank you very much for this refreshing development in every region, as you mentioned. That's for residential. What about the farmlands? We're using farmlands and convert into housing areas. What about farms per se, like farmlands plus homestead? Are we having those expansions and developments taking place?
So you do have some of that, and very shortly we are going to be embarking on that same homestead. That is normally done more on the Guyana Lands and Survey Commission. So for many of the communities that they've been allocating is more for the homestead. And we do have that model too very shortly for the Soesdijk Highway. For you saw His Excellency actually announced about 500 that will be allocated for homestead purpose, and there's a model that will be implemented there too, so that you can have a recovery for your payment using an agriculture model. But if you were talking along the coastline, as I said, lands are becoming scarce. So the huge yard space that you're accustomed to, you have to look at that.
Okay,
For
final.
example, East Bank of Demerara, up to Grove, we have already allocated all the lands up to Grove Diamond. In fact, going inwards or going eastwards, we've reached the conservancy.
Okay, okay, Dr. Ganga, your final question.
Well, you mentioned up the Grove. From that area, I regret that you went up to the Conservancy because that's where we used to farm. Then you go across to Craig and all the way to.
Those are private. After that, most of the lands are privately owned or leased.
Okay, so I'm very satisfied that you have a plan that's working, and
All
it's
right.
based on the needs, as you pointed out, for housing, plus the activities of farming and the industrial uses. So we have to look at the industrial uses more carefully because we don't want to end up with a mess or networks that are misplaced. And then, of course, you have the bridge. We're heavily investing in that area, bridges. We also need to look at boats and how that can reduce costs. So thank
Uh,
you very much for this update.
all right. Thank you, Dr. Ganga. Professor Budu, over to you.
Minister Kroll, I'm going to start off by asking you a question I asked you the last time, and I failed to obtain information. Do you have a master plan, a blueprint of all the housing development that's going on in Guyana and the associated infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and schools, parks, and that kind of thing?
All of our housing scheme, yes, yes, we do.
Where is
If
that plan?
if I start, I can name you the areas that we have developed, even in this few years that we're in office. Back in office, I can name that. But we do have every area that we develop. Let me just start. Let me just outline for you. So before an allocation is done, that's the easiest part where persons are coming to be allocated. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scene. So once we identify an area or we have approval for an area that we can develop further for future housing development, a sketch plan is prepared. Then we have a design that is done based on that. And that design obviously takes into consideration where the land is. So where the land is will determine the type of category house lots we will be allocating. So if we consider in prime, then it's more high income. As you go inwards, then it reduces itself in terms of category. The level of service obviously is the same across the communities in any case. And then once that happens, we go back into our system because when persons apply, their income determines the category in which they're placed. And that's why there's a parallel for a person who's applying to when they're allocated. So if I am allocating an area that is considered prime, then we won't call persons who are in the low income bracket because that defeats the purpose of our planning, the whole planning. And it's also unfair. And that's why we prevent this too, that somebody on their income, we see a particular type of income and it's more higher income, that we don't ever allow them to be allocated on a lower level because you're already, once you do that, you're displacing somebody who on their disposable income or their earnings is less and which they should get on the low income. So all of that is taken into consideration. Zoning for in a new area for commercial purpose, um, is taken into consideration. All of that is catered for, as well as what you're asking about, recreational facility, as well as future expansion, whether it's schools and so forth. So in some of the plans, we do leave what's called public open space that caters for future expansion. So I'll give you one example. East Bank of Demerara. In the short time, because of the growth, the Ministry of Education has had to budget and start building new secondary schools to cater for the clusters, the increased population. So we had an area we had to identify for them. That is on our plan. We catered for school, and so we could have easily make that land available. Now in the Grove area, the further end, for where we have expanded, we have just made an allocation for them to build a school in the future. So all of that is catered for in this plan. You ask about a master plan for development in terms of where we do have that, and
Where
we
is it?
also have.
No, Mr. If you have it, where is it? That I can take a look at it and other people,
But if
because
you ask for
many of
if
our
you ask
viewers were asking about this because this is public, supposed to be public information.
no, if you ask for specific information in areas, we can provide you. I wouldn't know what you want to discern.
No,
Whatever
no,
you
no,
want to
no,
discern.
no. One of the fundamental things about planning is that if you have a master plan, you have to show where all the residences, where all the parks are, the schools are, and you show how they're linked and all the businesses. And this is in a master plan, a blueprint, right? This is how the thinking goes, right? And you look at that plan and see how efficient is it, how sustainable it is, right?
Right. So that is
And
why we have.
the public
So that's
needs
why
to be
for
available,
government.
and that's supposed to be publicly available, and the public's supposed to have an input in it. That's normally how it's been done. So I want to know, where is that plan?
What
How can
type
one
of
get it?
input you're requesting of the public to put in? Because, for example, in we have it obviously as a government, we're one government.
Mm,
So even in Ministry of Education planning,
mm,
they have to take into consideration, they are providing information of all the new areas we're developing and the population we're catering for.
mm,
Even GWI, Guyana Water Inc. planning,
mm.
they are given the new areas that we're plan to develop or we have developed, the population size, so they take that into consideration or their planning. And that's the model we've been working for all the ministries and sectors,
Yeah,
also
yeah,
whether it's
yeah,
civil
but
service.
Minister, I think I don't want to pursue this further because there have to be a blueprint to show all of this, right? That's just going on because people get the same question that Dr. Ramdas asked, because people want to visually see this stuff, where these things are going on, and not you or other people coming on the program and mention, look, you got something going on, a grove and so on. You want to see where all these things are going on. So I leave that for the moment.
Sure. And I can
Um,
also share with you maps of where all our housing development are, etc. I can provide that.
yeah, because I was trying to get this and I couldn't for a while. Anyway,
Okay.
some of our viewers,
We'll talk after the program.
yes, some of our viewers are interested to learn more about Silica City, right?
Sure.
So I'll ask you a number of questions on Silica City. Appreciate if you could provide brief factual answers to them so you could help them get a range of answers for the various questions. What is the status of Silica City?
The status of Silica City, you would have seen us announcing a collaborative effort with University of Miami for the development of a master plan.
Mm,
And so they have developed that master plan.
mm,
And during the Building Expo, you will hear some more on this. So I wouldn't want to give out too much tonight, but I'll just
mm,
answer you basically. So we have developed a master plan, and where we have built, and that caters for different type of activities, whether
mm,
it's for hospitality, recreational, in terms of sports tourism, innovation city, uh, resident. I did mention residential. So there are different aspects that are catered for ecotourism, etc. So you'll hear more about that. I don't want to go much in depth, but yes,
mm.
we have developed with the University of Miami a master plan, but we have gone ahead to start the housing. We are currently building 100 houses there, the four type of model type houses there at Silica City. That is ongoing, and Silica City development for Silica City has already started because part of the relocation of a number of persons on the Suicide Highway is also taken into consideration because of the development of the city. So there are simultaneous activities that are taking place. Persons on the highway now have to consolidate where they're living because their future development for most of the on the highway. Speaking of this lower end of the Suez Dyke Highway. And so, yes, Silica City is a reality that is happening before your eyes. And you have what, a few more weeks before we'll make some grand announcement.
Yeah. Now, how many persons do you expect to live there in the next 2 to 3 years?
So that's why I said we're building 100 houses there now. It is expected we're expecting those houses to be completed within another 4 months or so. So by the end of the year, we want to be able to have the first set of persons start occupying. In fact, 110 houses to be exact. And then we continue because the other opportunities there will bring its own occupancy.
Mm. Now, do you have building codes and standards that are consistent with good practices, safety and energy efficiency, for example, and sustainable for the housing that you have going on now?
Good. So most of the building codes that you would have had initially would have been a lot focusing on the where persons are constructing within the particular boundary in which you're constructing, and that satisfying those physical parameters. But then there's much more beyond that, and so moving beyond just building of houses and encouraging persons to use the normal electricity, we are now pushing to have more smart houses, etc. So that is one of the big features you will find from the Building Expo, that we want to encourage potential homeowners to be able to understand that they saving a lot of money. You make an initial investment. Yes, the capital, if you put in electrical for your house and you put in any type of saving, whether you walk out the room and the electricity is turned off right away without you having to take it off. Yes, the initial capital for that is more, but they save much more in the long run. And then we also want to push obviously the green economy. So in the new housing development, one of the things we've been spoken to about here at the housing ministry is for us to have a little more in our housing developments, new housing developments. So have some of more trees, more sort of the natural environment to have that kind of cool atmosphere, and also taking care of our ecosystem. So you'll find a lot of that happening. And then eventually too, we also have to look at the utilization of the rooftops, because that's wasted too.
Mm.
And that's a whole another discussion. So yes, we are already thinking in that, and we have to start pushing people in that direction.
Okay. Now, you said you already have about 100 houses being constructed in Silica City. Now, what human waste disposal system would be there? Do you have sewer system or individual septic tanks?
Right. So that this initial set will be septic tank, but yes, we have to, for the other portions where we have the high end development, we'll have the sewer system, the mini sewer system. Even Georgetown here, uh, we are moving in a direction that the how we treat the waste treatment for sewage. We are addressing that.
Mhm. Now, because I know the last time you were here, you said Silica City is going to be a smart city, and I know
Yes, it is.
you don't want to disclose much before the expo, but there are certain technologies that have to be included,
Yeah, but it's a
and
hybrid, right? So this is just an initial. I mean, in okay. So the initial portion of development, talking about over 3,000 plus acres.
Mhm.
So this is just a small portion that we have started some building of the houses, but this is not the real teeth of what the Silica City is intended to evolve to have.
Yeah, because just to give an idea, this septic tank, individual septic tank, without say sensors, would disqualify Silicon City from becoming a smart city, because that's an important aspect how waste is
Understood. Yes.
being utilized. But I want to suggest to you, Minister, that because I told you the last time, I've been researching smart city for the last 10 years. I know many of them have failed. it is very important that the public be aware of what you're building there and have all this information that you were saying that will be disclosed at the expo to be available for the public to see, right? Because for the city to be successful, you should sell that city before you build it. And if you're not doing that, it's likely to fail, right? So I'll pass you on to Tara because my initial time is exceeded.
Okay. All right. Since we are at a point, Minister, can you tell us a little about the expo, your plans, how it's going, what are the various things you hope to exhibit, what will excite the viewers, potential home buyers, investors, etc.
Sure. The Right, sure. So plans for Building Expo is progressing well. In fact, the most of the booths already have been taken up. So, for example, we have about 95% of the booths have already been allocated. And so from that, we have just a few booths available. Let me give you an example. We have, for example, the main auditorium that is only maybe about four booths available. Then in the other three auditoriums we have basically, and those two of those are 100% occupancy. So while I said 95% of the booths are available, the available ones are only maybe food court, etc. But on the serious aspect of where the display of household items, etc., will be, most of that have already been they have been already allocated. So it's progressing well. We expect a massive turnout from the expo that's opening on the 8th of August and running on to the 11th. The opening ceremony is going to be at 5 p.m. on the 8th. That's a Thursday afternoon. And that's absolutely free. The gates are open for persons on the opening. But yeah, the days following, we do charge a nominal fee for persons who are entering. But we are talking about display of over 345 booths in various categories. That's a lot of display. And there are various categories that we're expecting. So this year, the theme for the expo is building on the foundation of sustainability and unity. So we're expanding on that theme. And what are some of the categories we expected to have? In fact, we have over 20, I think about 20 plus persons who are from various countries that have already bought booth space. So we do have international exhibitors that are participating in the Building Expo, where from as far as Italy, Barbados, well, US, of course, the Caribbean countries, some Caribbean countries, Puerto Rico, Indonesia, Brazil. So we have 20 international companies, and most of them are looking to showcase in terms of building materials, etc. But what are some of the type of display we do have? Some are construction companies, so they want to showcase what they do, what is their ability. Some are developers themselves, so they would like to have persons who are interested in that type of development. Some are local persons who are in the local business community that they're selling or displaying a product that can be used in the construction or housing sector. Some are from the banking sector as well as insurance companies because we're talking about different dynamics here. In terms of financial institutions, they're playing a big role. We do have from the forestry sector because you have to, if you want a particular type of house, you're talking about the type of wood. We do have logistics companies too. So it's not just housing per se in terms of just houses, but construction itself. And then we have an equipment zone. Believe it or not, the equipment zone has all of that has been sold out. So the equipment zone sometimes, most of the time, they have the heavy duty type of equipment that their persons are displaying there as what they have to offer in the construction sector, whether it's particular type of cranes, particular type of mixers, but whatever specialized machinery that they will want to have persons looking at. Then you have a lot of persons pay attention to your roofing, what type of materials you want to use, and what type of fine finish you want in terms of your wall, in terms of in your house. You have all of that. Electrical, we just talk about smart, and we just talk about energy saving. In electrical display will be playing an important role, because you have a lot of individual companies that will want to display products that you can purchase or you can install in your house, that will see you have a lot of saving on your electricity bill. We do have a lot of wastage, so sometimes some of it is laziness to turn on and off. So there are ways to address this. Um, so we do have a cross section of sectors, business communities that are participating. We have a section that is for that we're encouraging you to bring your family to spend as much time as possible. It's not possible to during the Building Expo to walk in just 2 hours to all the booths. I can tell you this up front. It's not possible. If you really want to leave the expo with enhanced knowledge, information, or even for others, for what you want to get ideas, innovative ideas, you can't do this in just a few hours with the amount of exhibitors that we have there. So we're encouraging persons to be able to come early during the day, during after lunch, and spend as much hours as possible. Bring your family, because we have the food court that is available, and then we have also for catering for the children for the play area. So that's in a nutshell is what's happening on the Building
Okay.
Expo.
Just about you're talking about what about solar panels for
Yes,
houses
absolutely. That's when there are persons who will be displaying solar energy type.
and
Um,
safety devices for buildings.
yes, you do
Yeah.
have well, even for alarms and other safety devices, and even
Mm,
knowledge of how best you can build your grill, because this is another issue too. You saw some recent deaths from fires, and some of those is it's simply because with the heat and the grills that are in the house, you're trapped. So if it's especially if it's from by the doorway where you have to exit. So there are ways that you can do this, put grill, but you have to know how to do your safety.
mm. Okay. We don't have much time, but we will leave at least about 10 minutes in the end for viewers' question. Um, I just want to you to focus just a little because this question was raised recently. I know you're the Minister of Housing and Water. Can you give us a an update on the state of treatable water throughout the country? What proportion has been finished, and what you in, and what proportion is still left to be completed?
So the the rewards from our investments, you're not seeing that fully as yet. And we are on track for a commitment to have a minimum of 90% treated water on the coastline. So you have 7 new massive treatment plants that are under construction, and in a few months, you have some of those will be completed, and so you'll see more of that. We have started out the year about 55% treated water on the coastline. That's what we started the year with. But in addition to the 7 treatment plants, we have another 5 that is about to be awarded. So that gives you 12, and the 13th is the Hope Canal. So the development of the freshwater source from the Hope Canal. In addition to that, we have a number of internal or inline filter development in smaller plants across the board for the treatment, for development treatment and upgrade of the system and expansion. So it's a tackling from four fronts: Eh, new plants, upgrades and expansion, new filter system, and then to complement that, we have the changing out of a number of transmission lines with new wells because we have to drill new wells to supply these treatment plants. So that is progressing well. I know there's an impatience in the population. Yes, we know. But I can assure our listeners that government is already invested in this sector. So it's only for a few months away that you will start seeing, before the year is finished, you will start seeing the rewards from that investment.
All right, and a quick question. What about waste management, waste disposal?
So in terms of waste, and I think I mentioned it earlier, that's the next focus that we have. So this initial focus was heavily on expansion, upgrade, as well as for treatment plants. The next focus for us from GWI for our governmental level will be to address the waste treatment for Georgetown, the sewage. Of course, we have an undesirable way of disposal at Kingston, and we have started work in this regard. Uh, as we're finalizing the financing. We have to move to the stage of financing, finalize financing, and then we'll implement with a pilot.
Okay. All right. Let me pass you over to Dr. Ganga for your last question, and Professor Budu last
Yeah,
question. Then we go over for 10 minutes question and answer from viewers.
with
Go ahead,
regard,
Doc.
yeah, thank you, Dr. Tara. With regard to the Housing Expo, in the area of prefab houses, what can you explain the local houses and the models and versus the ones for export, and also mention something about the vinyl, the use of vinyl. Um, just for the benefit of the viewers, we used to buy Kabakali and Wamara from Kingston, but Kabakali by truckloads outside of the high street there by the central garage. We buy the Kabakali and build our homes cheaply. Do we still have the use of those avenues, suppliers, and so on?
Sure. So the houses that we build, us here, we build utilizing blocks. There's a lot of spin-off from that, and there's a reason too. Because in the block, and tomorrow you'll see going to be signing an MOU with even the prison service. But the block making has advantage in terms of employment opportunities, etc. So the houses that we build are block making because we want to support the local village economies or local economy. And so that's the type of houses we've been building primarily. The prefab houses that you refer to, because we do have a lot of companies that come and it's not anything new that display to us the ability to build prefab houses, but then we also have to look at the cost. We do have a prefab house a contractor that is building some prefab houses right now, and that company will have a display at the Building Expo because that we have an MOU and they're building some houses for us too. So they're going to be providing the opportunity to have a display at the Building Expo for that type of prefab housing. But we have been looking at it because the prefab houses, yes, but then the nature on we have to weigh the pros and cons as well as the costs. So yes, we do
All
have
right.
that. But
All right.
government just quickly, but government push in the housing has been more locally in terms of the block making. You ask about wood in general, but wood, wood is so heavily because we have through some private individuals, we have houses that are being supplied to the Caribbean, Barbados, St. Vincent, etc. And I think recently they signed with Antigua, where they're supplying prefab wood houses, and that's in heavy demand. So that the forestry sector has gotten a boost because some of the wood type material being used is a lot of it is from what they're not what they consider the waste, and so that has been put to good use. The Villa Homes is one of the company I'm speaking about that is involved in this development. And you go to the Eco Lodge that has been built at Diamond, and you will see that on display. So So in terms of wood and demand, it's also a preference. Sometimes, the beauty of a house is in a wood. That's a fact. But persons who are building also will have to weigh their own factor, whether their cost factor in construction.
All right, Professor Budu.
Yes. Now, Minister, you mentioned that one of the theme of the expo is sustainability.
Yes.
Wood is a renewable resource and has a very low carbon footprint compared with concrete. You know, both Denmark and Sweden, I know, use wood as a preferred construction for housing and other structures. Why is Guyana? And I have done a paper in this when I was working in Guyana and some research on this in the 70s and 80s. Why is Guyana not utilizing for substantial forest resources, carefully managed for building construction? Because concrete throughout the world now is being reduced in quantity or being attempted. Yeah, people have been attempting to reduce the concrete footprint because of this carbon uh, uh, emission.
A point to note here, though, we've only built, as I said to you, we only built 3,000 plus houses, right? We have
Right.
allocated close to 34. So you still have 30,000 that has the opportunity to build whatever type of housing that they require. And so there's still that huge market for individual private potential homeowners to build for what they want. So just know that. So we're not, it's being affected in a massive scale. But I did mention to you that we do have other social factors that we took into consideration with the type of houses that we're building. That's why I said that.
Yeah, but I think it'd be nice if the government promotes this, right? Because
Okay.
then that would be
And that's why
something.
I said the beauty in any house is the wood. You want a
Yeah, but
beauty of a
there's a lot
house.
more. There's a lot more.
Yeah,
There's much more efficient,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In energy efficient for houses,
Yeah.
and it's actually absorb carbon, right? Um, Sarah?
Yeah. All right. Also, I think that the felling of trees, Ghana has a deforestation rate of a certain percentage, and they can't exceed that. So that will limit the amount of wood products that they can produce.
No, but you can
Uh,
carefully manage it.
they well, they are
Well,
they are
we're actually in our default we're way below even the ceiling for which is that will say that is unacceptable, way below. So that is why it's a result of that we are able to earn as a result of how we are
right.
managing our forests.
Yeah, carbon credits. Oh,
Yes.
okay. We have to go over now to the Shamisa to take your question and answer.
Thank you, Dr.
So,
Tara.
They
Thank you
almost
to our
forgot you there,
panel.
Shamiza.
I know, right? It's easy to just miss me. So we will now take questions, and our first question is from the Joint TV, and it says, "How much does it cost to exhibit at the show?"
At the expo, there are various rates for the booths. So let me so based on what is available now, um, the main auditorium, they're online. We have it. We can access it online. The information can be accessed online. You can be able to have the information there.
Is
Or
there
I can give your listeners some numbers, but there are various rates. So for example, where we have some booths available in the one Guyana, that is because of what it's offering. We have that's a $3 million package. Where we have, for example, in the main auditorium, that's similar amount, and the other booths are by and large gone. Mm.
is
The
there a
outdoor booth, I
website?
think we have about the outdoor booth that's also gone. Yeah. So yes, we have very limited space available.
Okay. Is there a website that they can go to for maybe the future
Yes,
and
absolutely.
apply?
So I was about to read that to you. So you can go to you can go to www.buildingexpo.gy, www.buildingexpo.gy, and you can also email info. Well, you can info@buildingexpo.gy.
Perfect.
And so just if I can give you at least two numbers, there were four numbers
Absolutely.
that we have. We have 635-1103. You have 714-1104. Of course, you have to put for your viewers. You have to put 592 in front.
Of course. All right. I hope that answered the question for the viewer. And now the other question we have is from Ramona Bear. And she says, why are bars given license to operate in residential areas?
Why are what bars?
Yes.
Oh, that's what it comes about with zoning. I mean, they are not. Every area of residential has a little bit of activities, and so you will have a shop, you could have a supermarket. It depends. So it's not. And see, even our approval process here, for example, for the Central Housing and Planning Authority Board, if there's a particular number you have to have in proximity, and if there are particular numbers in the area, they don't grant new ones either. So there, that is curtailed. So many of them, the shops that you see sometimes, they're I don't think they're actually registered. But those who have approval would have separation in terms of distance from the whether it's from a church or a school. That's one. Secondly, is the area zone. Every area, a particular portion caters for commercial activities. Every housing area.
Well,
The
I think
extent of the commercial activities is what varies.
she was referring to a specific area in Lenora, and it's become a nuisance where kids, young people cannot come out of their houses after a certain time, afraid, and there are like cars lined up on both sides of the street, and so that I think
But
is
that
what
can
she
be
wanted you
addressed
to
too
look into.
differently because you have the that can be raised with the Guyana Police Force. Lenore, if it's Lenore, the police station is not far away. It's
Of
a
course.
central Lenore police station. So if there's a particular complaint, then I can take it after.
I do have a comment that came in from a single mom, and I will message you that after the show so that you can look into it. She's looking for a housing lot. She's a single mom with kids, so I'll send you that information
But
so
when
you
did
can
she
take a
apply?
look. She said that she has applied. I'll send you the message as
Sure,
well
sure. No.
that she
Okay.
wrote on here. Now, for Building Expo, I heard that you mentioned a lot of sectors. I did not hear, and I know you probably couldn't mention everything, but there was nothing mentioned about home security companies. And I know Guyana being a country that burglary is an
There are, there
issue.
are,
There
there
are.
are. I mean, I don't.
Okay.
There are companies and popular ones too. Yes,
Very
that
good.
yes. So security is part of it. Yeah. I branched off when I mentioned about grill, but that is what I had in mind. And you had companies that have different alarm system, monitoring, use of communication if there's emergency response. You have that, yes.
Perfect. And then I have this question that just came in. Can you please say when Block 13 Golden Grove lots from 400 to 800 will be ready since last year? I
So
was told the first quarter of this year, and we are more than half the year and not award.
so so block 13, the block all persons for block 13 can see their land. I just want to make sure you have the right number. Where the major one is outstanding is in the area called block 18. And block 18, we have had to do some redesigning. And so within 2 weeks, we'll start calling in persons for that block 18. But block 13, persons can see their land, and block 13, signing of agreement is commencing very shortly, or maybe within 2 days, I think, or maybe tomorrow or the next day. But I know it's very shortly for block 13.
Well, thank you. That answers all the questions that we have
So
so
I
far.
just, if I can, just like if I can use this opportunity. So we do have a number of areas for which we have developed, and the persons some were waiting to see their land. They have been shown, and then they are waiting to sign their agreements. So as the area complete, we are doing the signing. So I just want to announce these areas. These are areas that we have just recently able to do complete signing. So you have um, Block 1, Section 1, that's grade diamonds, and these are all grade diamond I'll give you. Block 3, Block 5, Block Golden Grove, Block 9, that's my friend from Block Golden Grove. Block 13, Golden Grove, as I said, within the next 2 days, those persons will start being called. Cummings Lodge is an area that persons were asking a lot. La Reconnaissance, that's on the East Coast. Nonpareil Phase 1, Enterprise Phase 1. All these areas within the last maybe under a month, we have started signing. So if there's anyone who's within that area, can come in to the ministry to have their agreement signed because we are ready with those areas. Those are areas that they are waiting and we have ability to sign the agreements. So we would
Perfect.
want to encourage them to come.
Thank you very much, Minister Crow. We will now ask you for your closing remarks.
Let me say thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. I maybe next time we could probably try to do some more interactive because I do appreciate sometimes what are the questions persons ask. So it brings out from the question, it brings out what is sort of information they may need to know out there. But having said that, we at the Ministry of Housing and Water, we are implementing our program. Our government is pushing ahead on our mandate to deliver our commitment. We're on track. The investment requirements are the resources to ensure that this is fulfilled. Government continues to put the adequate resources. In fact, we've probably reached a capacity challenge in terms of contractors with workers. They're having workers challenge. So the labor force here is posing some challenge. And so I know very shortly there's going to be a diaspora recruitment drive, I think, by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and some parallel ministries where they're going to be encouraging persons to come back. But this is a sector that we would like persons to come back and work. You have a lot of persons there who can come back and earn, and a fair bit too. And so we are on track, and we're going to ensure that we are able to deliver. We're doing a lot. I mean, I didn't go into the nitty gritty of and comparably what we're doing, but you will recognize if you say that you have maybe 33,500 plus allocations. That's a lot comparing that 5 years before now, you had only 7,500. So sometimes I see comments on Facebook where persons say, only friends, only favorites, only the X person is getting through. But they're all categories that are being responded to. And 34,000, that's a lot of persons in a country that has, well, officially under a million, but I think unofficially probably close to a million. That's a lot in the context of what we're doing for our population. So here you have an avenue that persons now will be able to access their homes because of that 34,000, 20,000 plus have already been showed where they're living. So they have an opportunity to build their home. That's massive for the construction sector. That's massive for persons' personal growth and development and the future of their children, as well as for development for their families. That you have your own space that you can occupy. You don't have the hassle to deal with in terms of rental, dealing with neighbors, this dealing with living with family, all of that. There's a lot of social needs that we're also addressing, and so sometimes what is happening in the housing sector, I don't think we discuss enough the magnitude of the investment that's happening and the impact that is happening. So, even as small as the part-time workers that you see here, that is earning minimal, such persons now have an opportunity to go to the bank and be able to borrow maybe a loan on the $8 million and be able to take that part-time earnings, which is about 40,000, I think they get earnings, and they will be able to pay a monthly mortgage and still have in change left back. So even for a housing, low income house, a person can pre-qualify and they're paying a monthly mortgage on average about $26,000 for a low income based on their life expectancy by giving the average. So it means that an ordinary person that did not or at no time aspire that they can think that they can own their own home now have that hope of getting their own space. So that is a magnitude that is taking place. So we're on track, and I want to say that I'm always available and happy to come back. And if you want to go in depth to any other topic or any sector in terms of information that we've
Yeah,
just spoken about, it's a pleasure to be here on your program.
yeah, yeah, Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We will really need to have you back because there are so many other areas we need to cover. And I just want to tell you, I happen to be in New York from the 21st to 24th of August, also to our panelists, Professor Buru, Dr. Ganga, and Shamiza, on the between 21st to 24th. The president of a major foundation is having a Bhagavad Yajna at the Arya Spiritual Center ground. So I'm inviting you all to be there if you happen to be in New York, 21st to 24th of August at the Arya Spiritual Ground, which is 133rd Street and Liberty Avenue.
Noted, Dr. Tara.
And
Thank you.
it will the Bhagavad Gita will be read by the famous Pandit Rajan Balgovin.
Thank you.
So it's a good break from your mundane work to focus a little on your religious aspect. Um, so we want to thank you, Honorable Minister. I know you're extremely busy and you're very gracious to accept our invitation, and most likely we'll have you back. And to our panelists who are always there, and to Shamisa. So are you not going to, are you going to leave now or are you going to stay back with us to have a chat offline?
I'll give you about 10
You
minutes.
have,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah,
good.
that'd be great. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Thank you, Dr. Tara. Thank you to our
Thank you.
panel. Thank you to our viewers. Minister Kroll, I know you're very passionate about what you do, and it was clear tonight that, you know, you're very, very passionate about it, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here. Until next time, I am your host, Shamiza Ali, and it was truly a pleasure to be here with you this evening. This is the Guyana Dialogue. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.